Okay, here we are in the orchard, and it's the 9th of December, a cold and frosty morning. Weather's just turned a bit cold. In the background you can hear the ever-present roar of traffic on the M27, which never really stops. And anyway, we're out in hazel coppice, in the long hazel coppice. That way you can see the entrance from the lane, and that's about 150 yards from here. And looking down this way, yeah, far corner. So this is the ride, what we call it, and this is the long hazel coppice. And these are all hazel plants that we planted, and there are lots of reasons for planting hazel. And one of them is to enjoy the catkins and the tiny, tiny little red flowers that come a bit later in winter, just to remind you that, as the older saying goes, if winter comes, can spring be far behind. But hazel, of course, are very good for growing as a firewood plant. Now, of course, hazel doesn't make as good firewood as oak or ash. However, it's a lot quicker to grow. It's a lot easier to grow and to manage, and it is a very decent firewood. Once it's dry, you split it up with an axe or other appropriate implement, and it'll make absolutely excellent kindling, and it will burn reasonably well. So that we're doing some coppice work here, and today I'm doing a show about some saws, and in particular I'm going to compare the Silky Fox Katana Boy, the 500mm Katana Boy, and the Silky Big Boy. And also I'm going to be including this pretty inexpensive bow saw. This is the Katana Boy. It's 500mm. There is a bigger one made, and that is the Silky Big Boy. And as you can see, that's a brand new one. This is nearly new. This is brand new, and I'm just going to take that out, and we're going to do a little bit of forestry work. I'll just hand the camera to Julia. Now, first of all, we're going to have a look at the Katana Boy. This is a forestry saw. This is made in, this is the 500mm one, and this cost, I think, about £160. There is a 750mm one, and I have seen a video of a 1 metre saw, and I've seen a chap using that to cut down a big tree. So this is sort of a competitor for a chainsaw, if you like. Okay, this is how it locks. So just you have to unscrew that, press this down, pull it out, lock it, and this goes down again. You can see why they call it a katana. For those who don't know, the katana is the classical Japanese samurai sword, a fearful weapon. As you watch Kill Bill, or even better, watch the Kurosawa films. Anyway, let's do a bit of cutting. It's worth wearing some gloves, definitely. So, in this video, which probably is going to be about 20 minutes, I can't make it any shorter than that, really. Probably. I'm going to be comparing the Katana Boy with the Big Boy, and comparing both with a bow saw. Bearing in mind, this cost about £160, the Big Boy about £60. That's a lot of difference. And the bow saw is about £10. So, right, let's have a look here and see what's going on. Right, do something big to begin with. Take a look at this here. Right. Now this is going to be about the right length for our and with all of these saws, you pull on the back stroke. Now you can see I can get into quite a narrow little space. Where I'm cutting here, I couldn't possibly do this with a bow saw. I could do it with a chainsaw. These are safer than a chainsaw. They're quieter, and if, like me, you have an office-based job which is mentally stressful but doesn't give you any physical workout, you may feel that there is some virtue in using a hand saw. And as with, you see the way it went through at the end. As with all silky saws, the teeth don't splay out at the side. The teeth don't splay out at the side They were completely in line due to the brilliant engineering at the Silky works. And you can see that's a very, very, very clean cut. And that's a nice lump of wood that will store. Now let's do one or two more cuts with the Silky and Katana Boy before I do anything with the big boy. You can start getting into quite a narrow space here.
In terms of pruning, this is a much better cut for a tree. If you were clear felling for firewood, the ragged cut of a chainsaw wouldn't matter. But these smooth cuts are going to give the hazel a much better chance to heal.
Pull one of these through. So that's the Katana Boy. I think it speaks for itself. Here's the big boy. The size of this should have helped to know what the precise size of this is. You can see the design, fundamental design is very, very similar. Press down, there's no screw. This locks in two positions, which should do, yeah, like that or like that. Give a choice of two cutting positions. I'm going to show you the two blades together. You can see it's very much the same design. This one's slightly curved, which is a thinner blade. It's a little bit coarser. The Katana Boy is about a third longer than the Silky, than the big boy. Weighs a good deal less. The teeth are a little smaller. They're both made in Japan. This is more of a one-handed instrument, but you can grab two hands on it. So really, basically this one costs about £60, the Katana Boy £160. So you could buy two of these and a spare blade for the cost of a katana. So let's see, take a look at performance. Right, let's try and keep it equal. This one here is about the same as that. Okay, so I sawed that one off, and so we do that with the katana. Let's try an equivalent test with the big boy. It's easier to use, and it feels lighter. I've got more control. It is lighter. I've got more control. Where it's a somewhat narrower blade, you can get into a smaller space, and I'll show that in a moment. Well, it's no slouch. Although this is a new big boy, it's not the first one I've owned. Just going gently because I don't want to needlessly cut the ones behind it. Okay, I think you probably have to agree, very similar. This was the one I took out with the big boy, and this one with the katana. Not much in it. This one's a little bigger, but essentially not much in it. So you can see it's a serious saw. Take a few more of these. Now, in terms of getting into the tree, let's see about this. Incidentally, I might want to spare this. So if you use a chainsaw, you'll almost certainly cut this out too. With coppicing, traditionally, you'd simply saw it all down to the ground. because coppice means it's a French coup, to cut and comes again. It grows over a period of time. You can keep a coppice going for hundreds of years and it renews itself. But I prefer to cut the bigger ones, the bigger sticks selectively, and leave the ones that look as though they'll make some growth. So you can do that more with a saw like this. So let's have a look at this one here. So I'm sparing this one. Can you come behind me, Julia, please? With a chainsaw you'd inevitably cut this one too. So I'm going to see if I can avoid doing that.
We find this method of coppicing better with the deer because they tend to eat off all the new shoots where you've got a clear felled stump.
Sure,
but with these thicker ones,
yeah,
they can go on.
This is a 2 or 3 more. Do this one at a different angle.
The shorter blade is easier to manage going into the centre of a stool like that, isn't it?
Yeah. Another one. Ah, no, it's binding it there. This can happen, and as I mentioned in just putting a bit of pressure on.
It's because it's twisting, it's holding itself into a...
If you look up, Julia,
it's twisting up round that one,
yeah.
So it's pulling into the cut.
Yeah, there's a few ways of doing this. As I mentioned before, where these blades are thin, they can be snapped.
Yeah. We could cut in from the outside.
Tell you what I'm going to do. You stay there.
I'm just going to support this. We don't want to put unnecessary strain on the blade. Watch your head. There we go. So that's taking the weight off the lower portion.
Right, so let's do a head-to-head. Right, let's take one more. No, wait. What I'll do. I'm going to go through this. Last cut I'll do on live wood here. I'm going to go through this with the big boy. Oh, that wasn't a fair trial because there was a bit of pressure on that. Right, I'll go through this with a big boy. And now I'll do the same with the Katana Boy. He who splits logs is endangered by them. Always be careful. Right. Okay. Right, I'm going to come this way and I'll complete the test over by the...
Which would be easier to use for a longer period of time? Which would tire you more?
That's a very difficult question to answer. I think on the basis of what we've just seen, I'm not claiming it to be a very objective measurement, the Katana Boy, double-handed, bigger saw, will go through one of those branches faster. You'd expect it to. On the other hand, this is a pretty good tool, and it's not totally outclassed by its bigger brother. I just want to show you something interesting here. Okay, here's a 60-pound saw. So let's use the Katana, 160-pound saw. So I'm just going to cut this. Now, first of all, it's quite difficult for me to hold the wood here. It's going through it okay. Okay, done a perfectly acceptable job. How much did you say this cost, Julia?
It was less than £10, about £7 I think.
Okay, less than £10. With this I'm pushing.
And that's not a new one. I've been using that one for a year.
Okay.
Yeah.
Now the smoothness, you see, this was cut by the Silky saw, and this was cut by a regular bow saw. However,
cutting up firewood, that's fine.
We're cutting up firewood. So anyway, so 3 perfectly serviceable pieces of equipment. You pay your money and you take your choice. Bear in mind, I've had a Silky, I've had a big boy before. Do you know, actually, I believe that this is curved, and I'm pretty sure, because we lost it, we can't find it, we don't know where it is. The other big boy saw that I had, which I've seen a lot of use cutting apple wood, removing big old apple trees that had to be removed, and apple wood is one of the hardest woods there is. I didn't think it was straight, this one's curved. I think being curved is slightly better.
I like a curved blade, yeah.
This is about £60, a very functional piece of equipment. Light to use, you can use it one-handed, or you grip it with 2 hands to get a real bit more force. This is a 2-handed saw. It is a powerful weapon. This sort of competes with a chainsaw. If you're somebody who does a little bit of forestry of this level, and you're wondering whether to spend £200, £250 on a small chainsaw, bearing in mind how dangerous those things can be. I've worked in A&E and I've seen a few chainsaw injuries. Horrible. I'm not saying you can't hurt yourself very badly with one of these. I know from experience that you can. But in terms of a competitor with a small chainsaw, there's a lot to be said for this. But this is £160, this is £60. Of course you can buy replacement saws. But on the other hand, who would want to use either of these for simply sawing up firewood, when a £10 saw, well, you can buy a new blade for about £4.50. So there you are. But as Julia was making this point as well, just turn and look at this tree here, Julia. This one, this is a big stand of hazel. We've harvested a good deal of firewood out of that, which we'll stack up and we'll use it hopefully to warm our homes next winter. If you look at that tree over there, Julia, which we haven't started working on yet, that would be what this one looked like before we harvested a considerable amount of wood for it. And you can see we've left these uprights, we've left these thin limber branches, and these, all things being equal, these thinner branches, given more light, they should grow away very, very strongly next year. Whereas if we use a chainsaw and clear felled the whole thing, then you just get very small shoots coming up, and the deer would graze those right off probably, whereas they won't graze these right off. So anyway, so I hope that's of some interest. A little bit of a hazel coppicing video using hand tools, and as I said, for some years now, with the exception of the cheap bow saw for firewood, I've exclusively only used Silky saws. I've said most about the Gomtaro apple pruning saw, which is peerless, but it is peerless. As I said before, if it was a fish, it would be a fresh run Atlantic salmon. If it was a guitar, it would be a Gibson Les Paul. It's really, really very good, and okay, I could buy a pruning saw for £15, or I could pay £40, £50 for a Silky. When my wrist wears out, I can't get a new wrist. Okay, and these saws cut a lot faster and easier. So, hey, Silky, you should pay me for sponsoring you.